Welcome back to Happiness in Progress. I'm your host, Danielle Craig. I'm an Emmy Award winner, former journalist, mom, wife, and just a person looking for more joy in the everyday. This podcast is brought to you by the Mail Tribune. You can find podcast episodes at mailtribune.com. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And remember to rate this podcast on your iPhone. It helps me continue to be seen by Apple Podcasts and get really great guests to share with you here on the show. Okay, this summer will be the first ever Happiness in Progress live event. This event is a self-development plus ladies' night out. You're going to get dinner and you are going to hear from guest speakers from Camp 17. They are the founders, Lou Crenshaw and Chantel Dayton. If you have ever made it through your day and realized you are the only one you did not take care of that day, this event is for you. It's happening at Roxy Ann Winery in Southern Oregon on July 11th. Go grab your tickets while you still can, and this would make a great Mother's Day gift. So this week, if you buy a ticket between now and Saturday night at 5 o'clock, you will be entered to win an additional free ticket to gift to another important person in your life. A link is in the show notes. I can't wait to introduce you to today's guest. I've heard from listeners who have asked for a parenting expert to come on the show and talk about parenting tweens and teens specifically. This is a tough age to live through. It's a tough age to parent.
Connection happens with our kids when we can sit in the discomfort of whatever it is that they're feeling and let them talk about that.
I am so glad Sheryl Gould came on the podcast. She is the founder of Moms of Tweens and Teens. It's a national organization that has created a non-judgmental and compassionate place for tens of thousands of parents to share the struggles and triumphs of raising teens and tweens. Sheryl is a parenting expert. She's the author of the upcoming book, You're Not Crazy, You're Not a Bad Parent, and No, Your Teen Really Doesn't Hate You. I love the title of that book. She connects with parents through her weekly groups, blog, public speaking, and interactive parenting workshops. Sheryl offers so much wisdom in this conversation. We talk a lot about how to make connections with our kids, how even strong emotions like anger can help us do this. She gives us great sentences to use to get into those conversations and how to talk to a child struggling. You'll also hear about creating a safe haven in our home and building relationships with our teens and tweens. I like to start these by opening the floor to you and asking you to tell me a little bit about yourself.
I'm a mom of 3, and my oldest is 28, and then I is a girl, and then I have a 26-year-old son, and my youngest is 19, my daughter, and we are empty nesters for the first time this year. She went off to college, and then I'm also a parent coach and the founder and CEO of Moms of Tweens and Teens, and writing my first book. So I've really been working on that, just working with moms and leading groups and workshops. And we do a lot online. Also, we have a whole membership program. And so busy with that. So lots of awesome things happening.
Yeah, I love that. Great work that you're doing. As you've been writing this book, what are some aha moments you've had? Have you had any aha moments? I know writing a book can be hard.
Well, one of the ahas is I had a different name for the book to begin with, and it's a book about raising tweens and teens. And we have a meme that we put out there, and it was, you're not crazy, you're not a bad parent, and no, your teen doesn't really hate you. Mm-hmm. And it was about the brain, the teen, the adolescent brain, but it went viral, and moms and dads loved it. And so I decided that was going to be the name of the book. And so I guess one of my aha moments around the book is just how we need to, those 3 things, we need to know we're not alone. We're not the only ones. No, we're not crazy. We're not the only ones that are feeling this way. Just because our tween or teen is upset, it doesn't mean we're a bad parent. And also, if our kids are upset, it doesn't mean that if they're telling us they don't like us, it doesn't mean that they really hate us. So I think my biggest aha moment was just how much parents need to know that.
How do you build up that relationship? How can you strengthen that relationship between your tween or teen?
I think that what I have learned, and I actually started doing this, I'll back up just a little bit. I started doing this because my daughter, who's now 28, when she became a tween, she was strong-willed. And, she's one of my greatest gifts because she has taught me so much about myself. And when she became a tween, she got very moody. She was expressing all this anger. She was pushing back. And so I had been a very compliant child. And so I just had no idea what I was doing with her. And through parenting her, I had to start doing my own work on myself, so to speak, and really digging into what was happening with me as I was parenting her. And one of the things that I realized is, I had no idea how to help my daughter with her anger because I had never learned how to deal with my own anger.
Oh.
And I had to really start getting in touch with my anger in order to, and what I mean by getting in touch with my anger is I started having to not make that emotion a bad emotion. That it was actually information, and I had shut my anger down. And I think that this is very common to parents as we grow up in families, and if we grew up in a family where we weren't allowed, or we felt like we got that message that it wasn't okay, anger wasn't okay, sadness wasn't okay, when all of a sudden our kids start expressing that, we are going to be uncomfortable with that. And what are we going to want to do is we're going to want to fix it, or make our kids feel happy, or we're going to want to punish them, or, whatever that looks like for each one of us. But when I get back to kind of your first question about relationship, it is realizing that our emotions are actually a place where we can connect. So the anger could be, I learned that anger that my daughter was feeling could actually connect me more deeply to her. But at the time, I didn't get that. It took me some time to be able to see that. And as I started to grow around my own emotions, then my relationship with my daughter changed, and then with my other kids, and then and with my husband as well.
Wow.
And and myself, right? It starts with us.
So how does that look once you kind of come to terms with your own emotions and you learn how to deal with anger yourself? How does that look in the relationship of you and your child? Like, are you talking more about it? Is that what it is? It's a conversation?
Yeah, it's more of a conversation. And it stems from a self-awareness. So it comes out of that awareness of my own emotions, that when our kids they are in this whole developmental process where they are pushing us away because they're trying to figure out who they are apart from us. And so I find with not only in my own parenting, but with other parents as well, that is going to cause some upset for us as parents. And I call them, triggers. Things are going to trigger us. So if you tell your kid to do something and they start arguing with you, talking back, rolling their eyes, they're moody, all those things, what's our first reaction going to be? It's probably we're going to be angry. And then we react in anger, which ends up causing them to react back versus being able to start asking questions and like, okay, I hear you don't like this, right? I hear you're angry about this. Tell me about that. What are you actually angry about? And get curious. rather than trying to shut it down, then what we want to do is we want to control them, because emotions feel out of control. And so we might tell them what they need to do or to stop acting this way versus just being curious about it and opening up the conversation. And then validating it. So let's say your kid is pushing you away and they don't want to do something. Simply saying, I get it. I hear you don't want to do it. And I get that. And you still need to do it. But then, but then they feel heard. It's like, and it's amazing how just doing that, just listening and validating and affirming their feelings, how that will change how they're even, what they're arguing about, or even if they end up doing it, they will be more likely to do what you're asking them to do when you can listen and then validate their emotions.
A lot of the people who asked me to have an expert on the podcast about tweens and teens, we've had lots for the younger kids, but for tweens and teens, we haven't had that. And a lot of them talk about really taking what their teenager and their tween is saying very personally.
That is a real challenge for every mom and dad. That is so common. A big part of that is knowing, first of all, that you're not the only one, right? That is experiencing this. With the community of parents that I work with, that is big. Just knowing, okay, I'm not the only one that's kid is acting like this. And actually, this isn't such a bad thing. This is a necessary developmental process for them. And that if I can look at it that way, that they're pushing away is actually what they need to be doing now as they're trying to be more independent, as they're reaching adulthood, I can shift actually my taking it personally as this is necessary. And this really isn't about me. And I'll also add, knowing that these kids today, they're stressed out. And we are their safe place, especially moms that are listening to this. We get the brunt of it, as I'm sure you know, with your own kids. And moms are always saying that, like, mom gets the brunt of it. Dad is not getting,
Dad get home and then they're just angels.
I never understood that. My husband would say one thing and then they would do what he was asking them to do. And I'm like, is that your voice is deeper? What is that? Do you have a look that I need to learn? Yeah, just knowing we're their safe place. And so they may be having, stressors, friendship issues, or they've been at school all day and they're feeling anxious, and so we're going to be the person that they end up oftentimes taking it out on. So it doesn't really have anything to do with us most of the time.
So try to have that grace for them and that understanding that life is not easy for them either. At the
exactly. Time. And then it's information. When our kids are telling us something, or when they're expressing a lot of anger, usually that means that something is going on that we can be curious about. And just even being able to, I like the phrase, I'm noticing that you seem like you've been really, angry lately. Tell me what's going on, and say it during a calm time, not in the heat of it, but picking that time where, really being able to ask them, hey, I care about you. I want to know what is going on.
That goes right into communication, which is another one of the big topics I want to talk about, because it seems like, from what I've observed, because I'm not there yet, that communication starts to drop off with these kids who used to tell you everything about kindergarten and just were cuddling you and snuggling you and talking. Then all of a sudden, they're not as open. So how do you deal with that big change?
Oh, it's hard.
I'm not ready for that.
It is hard. And it's funny that you say that, because my youngest, my son, came home from college, and it is like they become aliens overnight. It's like you wake up and they're different. All of a sudden, like this switch is flipped. And my son was like, and he was really, he's always been close to his sister, and he said, "Mom, what's wrong with her?" Because he just had been gone and he came back, and it was like the body snatchers, like where did she go? So I guess, knowing too that this is normal and it is tough. And when they start to pull away, it's, there is a grieving process, but I think too, knowing they will come back. They're gonna come back, and knowing that too, and also finding how to connect with them. It's knowing that this is a time where their friends are going to become more important to them. They want to belong. They want to fit in. That is, these are things that really are important during this phase. But if we can find ways that we can connect, whatever that looks like, whether if your kid's gaming a lot, get curious about what that's like, what he likes about it, or she, taking them to Starbucks, any, breakfast, whatever that is that your kid likes to do to find those connection points.
This reminds me of my mom. I really wanted so badly to fit in when I was in high school, so much so then when my friends wanted me to sneak out of the house, my mom helped me sneak out of the house. But it did build, I don't know if that's what the experts would say to do, but it did build trust in that relationship and understanding, and made me more open, really.
Then did you feel like you could talk to her about other things?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's really raises a great point, because I find too that we live in a culture where parenting out of fear, because we hear every scary story that happens. And I was just talking to my business partner, and we were saying, why is that? And she was saying, do you know, when in the 80s, that was the first time that kids came out, their pictures were put on milk cartons. And then there was the one show, I can't remember what it was called, but where he had actually tragically lost a child. And it was like they were trying to find who had committed crimes. But it opened up this whole kind of, just hearing these stories where all of a sudden we started getting really fearful, like, oh my goodness, my kid could be abducted. Or even for me, like a kid wasn't wearing a helmet and fell on their bike and they had to be airlifted. And so where do I go now when my daughter first started, or my son was riding his bike? That is that fear that, I never wore a helmet, and I do believe that you should wear a helmet. I think that's very important to protect yourself. But I don't think that my mom ever thought about that happening. And now we just hear every scary story that comes down the pike. Mm-hmm. So when you were doing that, and your mom was letting you sneak out at night, those kind of things happen now, and we're terrified because we're right. Thinking, oh my gosh, if my daughter sneaks out at night, she could be abducted. And, or, she could be on Instagram and talking to somebody and be abducted, or all those things. So we tend to react, and then our kids don't feel like they can come and talk to us. So how do we create that kind of relationship where our kids feel like they can? That's the big question, right?
Right. And when I think about communication, even when my son isn't as open with me as he is other days, how was your day is just not enough.
No, in fact. And
I get a lot of good.
Yeah.
Good. And he's only 7.
Well, yeah, he'll be there before you know it, right? And that's like the worst time, right? When they get off school and they've had this stressful day, hard day, and they've been trying to hold it all together. And then we say, how was your day? We're usually going to get that fine. They're not going to want to talk about Your son probably has to come home and eat, I would imagine, and chill a little bit.
Unwind a little
Yeah.
bit. Mm-hmm. So what's a better way to go about opening communication lines with your tween and teen instead of saying, how was your day?
Well, I think first let them eat, right? Have like all the really good snacks that they can come home and relax and just chill. And then just being able to also not have them feel like you're interrogating them. I think that when you're talking about our kids talking less as tweens and teens, it's funny because I was just talking to my daughter about this. The moment that they give us a little bit, then we get in there, and she was just saying to me, Mom, you just keep asking me so many questions. It's like I see an opening, and then it's like I want to pounce. And so just letting them set more of the pace and not getting in there the minute that they share something hard that happened in their day and giving them advice. Because they might say, oh, I didn't do well on my test. I don't like my math teacher. And so it's easy for us to jump in there and say, well, you didn't study as hard as you needed to. That kept telling you that. So I'm not surprised you didn't do well. Or, next time you need to do X, Y, and Z. We have to just take a breath and take a step back and listen to what they have to say, reflect back. That's what I always tell parents. It's like, okay, so you didn't do well on your math test. How did you feel about that? And then just let them tell you, well, I didn't like that I didn't do well on it. Is there anything that you might do differently next time? Get them to start thinking about what they might do rather than we go in there and we start telling them what we think that they should be doing. And when you're a tween and teen, they do not listen to our advice, unfortunately. They're more prone. We want to start transferring that, telling them when they're younger, we could do that. We are teaching and telling them what to do. But as they enter those tween years, we're become more of a guide. And so we want to do more coaching. And what does a coach do? They ask questions. So what would you do differently? And then also inviting them, like, okay, you're struggling in math. Is there anything that you need me to support you with? What might be helpful to you? What do you think, would help you with math? How can I support you? Is there anything that I can do? And chances are they probably will start out by first saying, no, there's nothing you can do, but they'll think about it. And when I work with moms, they come back the next group when I'm leading a group or the next coaching session, and they say, wow, I left it open and I said, just let me know, how can I support you? And then the next day they come back and say, Mom, I think I need a tutor, or, I think maybe I need to look into, extended time or whatever it is. They become problem solvers. You're starting to help them develop and strengthen that muscle to be able to solve their own problems. And then they feel more capable of solving their own problems.
As you were talking, that's what I was thinking. That skill of problem solving, that's a lifelong lesson. So not only is it helping in your communication, it's teaching them this lesson they're going to use for years.
Absolutely. And it's easy to want to, jump in there and rescue them and tell them what they need to do, right? Mm-hmm. And we will. Sometimes we're going to do that, and that's okay. But if we can, most of the time, or at least half of the time, 40% of the time, start practicing asking those really good questions. you'll start to see your kid feeling more capable, more agreeable. You're not going to get into that headbutting and those power struggles.
We talked about this already, but I want to bring it up since we're still kind of in that same place of communication. One person on my Facebook page asked this question. She's putting toward you. She says, my teen is always mad at me for something. I'm really worried about her, but at a loss for how to help her manage her emotions, behavior, and expectations of others. So it goes back to figuring how to manage those within yourself, as you mentioned. But are there any other tools? I know a lot of parents struggle from the outside looking at their teenager who is struggling, but don't know how to help.
What I like is that she recognizes it, and she's attuned with her daughter is angry, and that she wants to be able to figure out what she can do that's going to actually be able to help her. I would want to be curious. I would want to say to her, you know what, I'm noticing that you're angry a lot with me. And, I want to hear from you. What am I doing that you don't like? And invite her to actually tell her what she doesn't like about her. And that there's something, though, when we open that door, we have to really not take it personally, like you said, which is hard.
Yeah, that'd be hard.
But also try not to be defensive, because if we can ask our kids, on a scale from 1 to 10, how do you think I'm doing? How are we doing? Is there something that I'm doing that you really don't like? That's going to send the message to our kids that, wow, you care about me. You want to hear my feedback. It matters to you. You want to grow. See, that's that whole mutual respect. If our kids know, hey, I'm working on this too. I have never raised an adolescent. I'm learning right along with you. So I want us to have a relationship where you feel safe to come and tell me if I'm doing something that you don't like. And I want to hear that. And it doesn't mean that we have to always say yes to our kids, that we don't have boundaries, that we don't have rules. What we're saying to our kids is, I want to invite you to share your heart with me and tell me how you feel. Because just because they say, Mom, you're so unfair, everybody else is going to that concert. I've heard that before. I live in Chicago, and all my kids have wanted to go to a concert, and everybody's going, and no, everybody is not going. So,
you know what? My parents, I never got to go to a Backstreet Boys concert when I was a teenager, and now I'm going to live that dream finally in my 30s in July. So it'll be okay.
Are you really going?
Yes.
I love it. So you don't have to believe that everybody's going, because that's not true. But just them knowing they can say that to you, it doesn't mean that you have to give in, right? But they know you're a safe place for them to be able to share that with.
I really love that even if they don't talk, you have showed that you care and you have showed your love.
And so if they tell you they don't like something that you're doing, we don't have to defend ourselves, which we're going to all want to do. I've gone through this with all 3 of my kids, where they've told me things they don't like about me, and it's like being hit in the gut.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I'm like, oh, and I say, oh man, I hate to hear that. Oh, it feels like, but I'm glad you told me, and I want to defend myself. Sometimes, we can talk about it, but I'm just going to think about what you said to me. I'm just going to think about what is maybe true about that, and being able to take that in. And I'm telling you, that helps in all of our relationships. If we can just say, you know what, that I hate to hear that, but I'm going to think about that, and then ask ourselves, what might be the truth in that?
There's got to be a fine line between letting your kids open, but also becoming your kid's punching bag.
Yes. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because I think that that's one of the things that, can be tricky to navigate. I do think, though, that we become more of a punching bag And I've experienced this, and the parents that I work with, I believe will attest to this too. We become a punching bag when we get caught in the power struggles.
Mm-hmm.
And that is when we get into these fights with our kids and they don't feel like we're listening to them. They don't feel like we're hearing what they have to say. And then that is when they, especially as tweens and teens, that is when if we're trying to control too much, then they are going to really want to fight. And we actually end up having more rebellion. So I would say just, to whoever's listening, just try it. Try to listen. And of course, figure out, okay, I have exercises that I have moms do. What is disrespectful? What is my kid doing that's not okay? And what is something that I can live with? And, where am I going to pick my battles? So because we have to get clear first, what is actually disrespectful? If our kids are name calling, then we can set a boundary. Okay, you know what, it's not okay. I want to hear that you're angry. What you're angry about. I want to talk about our relationship. But when you start calling names, or when we're really, it's starting to get to that level where there's yelling, I'm going to walk away. And once we both calm down, once you calm down, we can talk calmly. Let's take a breather right now. I've said I'm going to give myself a timeout because I'm getting too heated. And then when things have calmed down, we're going to come back and let's talk about it when things are calmer.
And those are such good relationship skills. Those will serve them in relationships and marriages as they go on.
Yes. Yeah. But I do think that it heightens the more that we try to clamp down and control our kids. It's actually when we're going to really have those power struggles.
When your child is acting this way and they're very mad at you or kids around them, is that a warning sign that something else is going on?
All behavior is information. So there's a reason when our kids are lashing out that we can get curious about and think about what is really going on with this kid. What do they need? And it's kind of like a dashboard light. That's something is going on that we need to pay attention to.
For kids who are struggling, maybe they're open with their parents about this. Maybe they're not necessarily super mean to them or angry with them, but they're struggling at school. They're struggling to fit in. This is such a hard age group. How can you support your child who is kind of floundering?
Each situation is different. Besides really being able to try and talk to them, if your kid is showing signs of depression, being able to get them help, if they needed somebody else to talk to, is really important. Kids nowadays, and I'm sure you've heard this, Danielle, they're more anxious and stressed out than we are, their parents. Yeah. And kids are depressed like never before too. So being able to get them support and somebody else that they can talk to is really important.
Is social media part of that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Hands down. Mm-hmm.
How can we create a world where they can use social media, but also not get all the negativity that comes with that, not get the comparisons, not get the need to be like this person and that depression from social media? Is there a way to create that world? In all your studying, have you found a way to help our kids on social media?
Well, there's many different things that we can do. I think it starts with also understanding how they're impacted by it. That, they live in a world of performance and appearance. One of the things that I see a lot with parents also is we're living in that world. And yep. We're living in a world where it's all about performance, where our kids they're scheduled to the max. It's not like I mean, my husband and I were just talking. He's like, gosh, I freshman year in high school, I tried out for soccer and I made the team. I had never, ever played soccer. Now our kids are starting to play soccer when they're 3 and 4 years old, right? And so it's very even difficult to make a team in high school if you have never played the sport before. So our kids are living that alone. And then the expectations around schoolwork are so high. And then the appearance and social media and how it all reinforces that. And then we look on Facebook and it looks like all the other families have it all together. All the other moms are doing it so much better than we are. And, oh gosh, and look at their kid is doing this. They must not be struggling. And it's just not true. But I think we feel a lot of pressure. And because we're feeling a lot of pressure, we end up not meaning to, we put a lot of pressure on our kids. And then that just feeds that anxiety and that depression. And as a mom, it's easy to look at what our kids aren't doing, like they're not doing their schoolwork, or their room is a mess, or, or we focus on those behaviors that are obnoxious or bugging us, and we're correcting them all the time, or we're lecturing them. And that ends up just creating more of that feeling of, I can never do it right. Feeling more anxious and more pressure on our kids. So we really want to ask ourselves, how can we become a safe place for them to come home to when we live in this world of performance and appearance where there's so much pressure?
Yeah, so much pressure. And I think it goes back to what you said about kind of dealing with your own stuff.
Absolutely.
As you're trying to help your kids. It's very hard to help your kids when you're worried about how everyone sees you. It would be easier to help your kids when you've kind of let those walls crumble and you can focus on your child instead of everyone else looking in.
Exactly. And I think too, if our kids are struggling, we blame ourselves. And as a result of that too, I think then we think, if my kid's struggling, or let's say they're not doing their homework, then if I'm a good mom, that wouldn't be happening. And so we try to, where it may have nothing to do with what we're doing, right? It's just maybe the kid, they just don't like math, right?
Yeah.
But I think that we put a lot of pressure on our kids, and I'll just speak, about myself. I would look at maybe where one of my kids was floundering, and I would think, oh, I must be doing something wrong here. And if they don't pull it together in this area, then it's going to say something about me that I didn't do enough. And so then that belief is going to fuel into me putting more, ended up causing me to put more pressure on my kids in that area. Versus, it's like we attach us and rating our job as a parent based on our kids. And so it's just simply not true. All our kids are going to struggle in different ways and may not like math or whatever, right? But it doesn't mean that we're doing something wrong.
They're individuals. And even at my kids' young ages, I can already see how different they are. And I parented them all the same. They still have their problems, their different problems. A little bit ago, you said we just need to figure out how to be the safe place. So how could we do that? How can we be the safe place for our kid?
And I was listening to some of the other people you've interviewed, and I loved what one of the gals said about being perfect and happy, that we all make mistakes. We all make mistakes. We're all learning. And so just to be able to step back, let go, join your kid in saying, me too, I'm learning too. That is just such a powerful message. And being able to tell our kids when we're even, like I kind of had talked about in the beginning of the podcast, that, you know what, I'm trying to figure this out right now. I'm trying to figure out how to, parent and what I should do here. I think our kids need to hear that. Our kids need to know, gosh, mom is figuring this out right alongside with me, and that's okay. Mom is human. I'm human. And when we can do that, our kids are going to feel like they can come to us and that they can admit their mistakes too.
So I had another person ask this. They said, we are struggling with the exposure to media and the resulting behavioral changes. For example, more exposure to adults, adult-like behaviors, situations, leaves my child super sassy, like he's replicating the confident behavior of a sports star, musicians, YouTube sensations, and it comes off as this arrogant, argumentative, ungrateful attitude. So that's the question. How do they deal with that?
Well, it's tough. How old are they? A tween or teen? Did they say how old?
Tween.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
a tween. I guess first I would have to say, I would start with saying they are trying to figure out who they are. And if I find it is common with both boys and girls, but especially boys, they are trying to figure out who they are. And in like 6th, 7th grade, boys are going to try that on. They might all of a sudden start not maybe being nice to another friend. They're trying to figure out what it means to have confidence, and they're not feeling very confident at that age. And so you might notice that even with your son being 7 and like
Mm-hmm.
9, 10, 11, they're and boys will, in junior high, they kind of banter back and forth, and they might, they're trying to it's kind of like locker room talk and trying to figure out like, how does this all work? How do I act like I'm confident and I'm not feeling, how do I be a man? They're trying that on and trying to figure it all out. So that would be my first thing that I would want to say to her is would want to say, just know he's trying to figure out how to be that confident man, and he's probably not feeling very confident. Mm-hmm. And then being able to, at a good time, again, saying, you know what, I'm noticing when you're watching that guy, talking, or you're seeing that behavior, that you're trying it on here at home. Mm-hmm. And it's not okay.
Is there anything similar to that teenage and preteen girls deal with? Like kind of just across the board, they're kind of all dealing with the same issue?
I think girls will try it on as well, trying to figure out how to fit in, how to be cool. A lot of times kids will even try out like using swear words because maybe other kids are, and they're trying to kind of, because they want to belong so much at this age, they are watching their peers and they're trying to figure out, okay, what do I need to do to fit in here? And some of that is just being able to strike up those conversations with our kids about if they're on social media. I heard a story, you can use stories like, I was reading the other day, about how hard it is to grow up now because, you have Instagram or whatever, and just feeling like you've got to make your picture look perfect for, because you want to get likes, is that, what's that like? Is that true for you? Does it feel like that? Like asking questions to get them talking. And I was even asking that of my daughter that's 19 recently. We were talking about dating. I'd heard about how there's a lot of pressure now with dating and texting and, kids are breaking up now because they don't want to keep answering texts. You know what I mean?
Wow. It's so much different.
Yeah. It's like, when do you stop texting? Right. It just keeps going on and on. And she's like, yeah. And it opened up this whole conversation with her about dating and the, social media and all of that. So I think just being able to use stories, or asking questions, or how do you feel about social media and all of that, can really stir up some good conversations with and again, we want to get our kids, help them to become more self-aware. So when they're talking, when we're asking questions, it's like they're processing out loud. And at the same time, we're also sending the message, I care about you and I care what you have to say about this. And I want to hear what you have to say versus talking. We're more apt to talk about how dangerous it is and how this and that. Not that we don't need to talk to our kids about the dangers of social media. We actually have tools on the Moms of Tweens and Teens website. But we want to get them to be able to talk out loud and get them talking and sharing with us about it.
I'm thinking too, the parents got to put that phone down to have these conversations. And I know that's hard too, even as parents.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's like we're modeling, right? And so we're just asking ourselves, too, how are we modeling this with our kids? We get upset with them being on their phones all the time. How are we on our phones all the time? Like, am I asking my kid to do something that I'm not willing to do? Am I, telling my kid they have to keep a spotless bedroom, but my bedroom is a mess? You know what I mean? It's like looking at those areas where we're asking kids to do things that we're not doing ourselves, and just where might be those inconsistencies.
As you've worked with so many parents, what is one thing that you've heard over and over and over again?
What I hear from parents the most now is just how difficult it is to see their kids struggling. And what do I do when I have a kid that's struggling? When my daughter comes home from school crying because she's been, excluded from the lunch table. My son is feeling a lot of anxiety. What do I do? That it's the seeing their kids in pain and discomfort that I hear over and over again. We have a private Facebook community that's just private, and we've got over 4,000 moms on there. And I would say that most of the posts are dealing with their kids being in pain, their kids expressing anger and emotions, and not knowing how to deal with that.
What is one way for anyone listening? What's one thing they can do today to start dealing with that, to start dealing with the pain and the struggle their child is facing?
One of the biggest ways is to know that relationship is first. So, and what I mean by that is connection happens with our kids when we can sit in the discomfort of whatever it is that they're feeling and let them talk about that. Versus wanting them in that moment. I mean, it is when our kids are struggling, it is really hard to sit in that. And yet, if you think about it, even with a good friend, that when you've been in pain around something in your life, who is the first friend that you're going to want to call? It's the friend that is going to sit there in whatever painful place you're in that moment, and they are going to listen to you. They're not going to jump in and tell you all the things that you need to do to make it better. They're going to actually sit in that pain and listen and say, wow, that is really hard. Wow, you got left out at the lunch table today. That would really hurt. That hurt. I can hear how much that hurt. We have to start there and let our kids express.
I love that example you gave of who do you call, and you call the person who listens.
And think about it. I mean, it's so counterintuitive with our kids. And then what happens when you call that friend? Maybe you have a good cry. I mean, I'm a crier. Or you're really angry about something, and it's a friend you can just spew, all these emotions. And then what happens? We hang up and we feel so much better. And that's going to happen with our kids too. When they know that they can just talk about it, it's, the anxiety level comes down, versus if we're in there trying to fix the anxiety, we actually add gasoline to the fire. And I have 2 kids that have struggled with anxiety, and myself, I've struggled with anxiety. And I would say being able to express that anxiety is automatically, it brings it down. Just being able to, if your kid is like expressing a lot of anger, whoever's listening, seeing that anger, that oftentimes it manifests, our anxiety manifests itself as anger. So if we can just hold that space for them to start talking about their feelings, we're going to see a shift in that anxiety coming down. Just even starting there, it's going to help our kids.
That's such good advice, especially to someone who's such a fixer, who wants to fix. Okay, we are just about out of time, and I wish we could keep talking because there's so much to talk about. But I want to ask you the last question that I ask all my guests. This podcast is about finding a happier life, finding more joy in the everyday. What would be your number one tip to do that?
I love this. It's called the 5-to-1 rule. And I don't know who first said it, but it's that for every 1 negative, we need 5 positives. Mm-hmm. So I think it's the same for us as human beings, whether we're parents or not. We have all these negative voices in our heads, right? And so we want to be able to, versus like focusing on those things where we end up as moms or dads, where I think moms were possibly worse than men, but I don't know. I think, men can do the same thing, or maybe we just talk about more, but we can be so critical of ourselves, right? Or maybe we have a bad day with our kid on the way to school and they're, it's just been a horrible morning. And then we berate ourselves the rest of the day, right? That we blew it that morning. And so I just think being able to think about, gosh, what am I doing? All the things that we're doing every day. So I would say really trying to replace those voices and just like giving ourselves a hug and a pat on the back and saying, you know what, I would jump in front of a train for my kid, right? Mm-hmm. Who of us would not jump in front of a train if it would, save our kid from something? I mean, we just love our kids so much. And we're trying to do everything right. And we're going to mess up. So I guess how's my way to joy? It's like trying to focus on all those things I'm doing every day. And also having one friend or one person that I can call and talk to when I'm struggling and knowing that we're not alone. We're all struggling with something. And I think it's so easy to compare ourselves and think that we're not doing enough, or we're not doing as well as somebody else. And it's simply not true.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Open the blinds a little bit. I think that helps as well. And I love that you mentioned the 5-to-1 rule, because I noticed I was complaining about my son my husband would get home. My son would be sleeping and we'd just complain. I've started, yes, there was this issue, but look at these 5 things that I love so much about him. He's a great kid. And it just helps me keep that grace and keep me a little bit grounded, I think.
Yeah.
But Sheryl, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I'm so excited to share this conversation, and I just appreciate your wisdom.
Well, thank you, Danielle. Thank you so much for having me on. It's been great.
I hope you loved this conversation. I loved talking to Sheryl. I loved all of her tips. I have posted some of her resources in show notes. And of course, if you are wanting more, go check out her blog, Moms of Teens and Tweens. There is so much there. If you have any more questions, I'm certain you'll be able to find your answers you're looking for there. So that's linked in the show notes as well. And thanks for being here on Happiness in Progress.